Everything I've heard so far is that, we've got this increased tolerance of mistakes. We've got happy employees. We've got happy customers. We're selling to them in a deeper way. What can get in the way of that? So if we're trying to provide good customer service, what kind of things can actually get in the way of us doing that?
In my perspective, the number one thing here is the people who serve our customers directly. And if those people don't thrive on serving others, aren't able to empathize and put themselves in the shoes of the customer, we'll never be able to provide good service. It doesn't matter how many mantras we develop, how many rules we have, how many concessions we're willing to give to our customers in the event of bad service. If our employees aren't wired to serve others, we'll never be able to succeed in providing good service.
And to expand on Joel's point a little bit, and we'll probably touch on this more, but communication is the key to all of it. So whenever I've seen a service breakdown, almost 100% of the time, it has to do with some kind of communication breakdown. And if we're not communicating in the right ways with our clients, then that's on us. Occasionally, you might get a client that doesn't think what we're doing is important, or has other priorities, doesn't want to talk about it, whatever. Sometimes those can be a challenge, but if you keep trying to communicate, those people will eventually, find the time to give you the time they need. But if we're not communicating in the right ways, and there's so many ways to communicate, email's great. You have a documented path of what you've done, but man, nothing beats picking up the phone and talking to somebody. And sometimes it's tough to get people to do that. The phones don't bite. I don't know, what we're afraid of, but that usually solves everything. And if you can have that conversation in person, even better. But to me, that's where the rubber really meets the road, is those types of communications.
So it's the personal touch too, right? And obviously at the time of recording, hopefully some people would be listening to this at a different time, but we are still going through a pandemic, and those in-person meetings are rather difficult compared to how they used to be. But I agree with you, picking up the phone or doing a Zoom call like this, but that personal, attention to those customers. And frankly, email and text have never done that for me. But when I talk to somebody, have a conversation, then you certainly feel that. And Joel, what about from your own experience as well? Is that, have you seen that communication is important, that personal touch?
Absolutely. I mean, it's where you can convey your intent more easily than you can in the written communication. And you can hear the intent of the customer. And again, if you're going to serve somebody else, you need to understand what's going on with them. And so much of that is lost in an email. And to Corey's point, if you're sending an email to somebody, that is a one-way conversation. Yes, they can reply back, but each part of it is one way, versus a phone call or an in-person meeting. That's a two-way conversation. There's cues there that you would have access to that you wouldn't normally have access to in written communication that can make it easier for you to meet the needs of the person you're serving.
Yeah, and what you say there is about the tone and the context is so critical. And I've been guilty of this myself, where I've sent an email or a text, which I thought was just straight business, right? Like I was just laying out the facts, only to find out days later that the person I was sending it to was mortified and terrified of talking to me because they thought it was like a condemnation of their, what their approach was or what they were doing. And it's like, no, that was not my intention at all, right? And so certainly that personal touch, even us right now being on, kind of a video conference for those that are actually watching this on YouTube, you can see a lot more going on, and that's really important, right? That human touch.
Yeah, and I don't want to convey to our listeners or viewers that written communication is not okay in any situation. But I would just suggest that in the event that that's the method you choose to use or that you have to use, before you press send, reread it. If there's some potential for controversy, have somebody else read it and imagine yourself in the recipient's shoes about how they might receive it. And sometimes for me, it's I don't know if it's embarrassing or not, but sometimes I spend an inordinate amount of time on like a 2-line email because I want to make sure that I'm not, opening myself up to misinterpretation of my intent in the words that I'm conveying.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned as well, especially with email communication and text, is to make use of an introductory statement and a finishing statement, which have nothing to do with the topic and everything to do with the person. So generally asking, hey, Corey, miss you. I heard you had a great fishing trip. Can't wait to catch up on that. On to business, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of it, the same thing. Corey, let's set up a time to be able to, connect on the phone. Can't wait to talk, right? Because then you're framing that person at the beginning and the end, not the stuff that you're trying to talk about, right? So I don't know if you guys, do that too, but I find it very useful.
I don't do it as often as I should. I do. I mean, I am mindful of it and attempt to do it.
Yeah, and again, unlike you, you're spending a lot of time doing the operational stuff now, and I'm spending a lot of time on the writing end of things for blogs and everything else. So I try and pay a little more attention. Hopefully it's happening.
I like Joel's comment about rereading emails, because I'll do the same thing. I'll have people come in and read this over. It's so easy for written communications to be misinterpreted, and it happens every day, even in very simple things in personal communications. But even the best written email can be taken in a number of ways. And the nonverbal communication of being able to see the person or be in the same room as the person, there's a whole lot of communication that happens non-verbally in those situations, to the point of cues and things like that. So written communications are great. It's efficient. You can reach a lot of people, but your message has to be on point every time, or you can open up a Pandora's box pretty quick.
I really appreciate you sharing that. And I know that our listeners and our viewers do too. And we are out of time. So in the interest of respecting both of your time, thank you so much for taking the time to actually do this interview today. And for everyone that's listened in today, I know that you've gotten some gold nuggets for yourself when it comes to customer service. You can get more information and more learning at www.tigerpod.com. Just look for the resources tab and you'll find some additional learning materials, both in podcast as well as blog format and of course video.